Well, you just sound yours. I did your dance and everything. Too bad you didn't have the sound. I could hear them singing.
Did you want to say anything about the song before you start? You're okay? All right. Let's make sure that our team is ready, and I'll give you a wink and a kiss and a wiggle.
Yeah, I love it. Nice to see you. That's how I like to start my evening.
Osiam Haichka. Good evening and welcome everyone. Misapkakwelum to all the legislatures, to awesome members in the gallery and online, guests that might be sitting with us, other staff that are here in person, and for anyone that is participating in the online session. I want to extend gratitude to my relatives, Connie and Jessica Adams, for the beautiful drumming, for unifying our hearts, for honoring our sacred traditions with their voice and their drum. We really appreciate starting these sessions off in such a good traditional way and grounding us with the talent and the beautiful hearts of these two young women. Also would like to thank our up-and-coming Ramsey Catering for the delicious meal that we've shared tonight. It's always a little nerve-wracking cooking for a lot of people when you haven't done it before. When our seasoned veterans like Yums and Janet's Catering make it look so easy, so we really raise our hands to Ramsey's Catering for the delicious meal that we shared tonight. And I would also like to thank Legislature Spalautuit, Terry Splachton, and Bequemistot, Angeline Splachton, for starting off our meal and blessing our table and making sure that we start eating our meal in a good way. Many thanks and haichkas to those relatives as well. Tonight marks our Isatla meeting, our second meeting for the spring 2025 session. And we have a lot of important work to do tonight. And I'm grateful to be here with all of you. It's Thursday, the day before Valentine's Day, the day where we also have our hearts sharing with others, and one more day before the weekend. So we're going to do some hard work tonight so then we can earn our weekend. But before we proceed with tonight's agenda, I'd like to invite our respective relative, Jessica Adams, back to the microphone to open our meeting with a prayer. Cousin?
Heichka Squeakle, Heichka Feather Runner. Aitsnet, Ait Met Misteo. I'm always honored and humbled to do this work. So let us pray. Seat talet to seat salt cm. Ni welsh, Ait Met Tenaswael. At Satsa ten to Muxt. Isla Tiwiel at seat salt cm. Huyanam at Tasant Stiwiel. Seat thama u Masteos Skakip. Hiclematoch Tanawael. Thiquamchuch Sawatoch at Tathsiazd. Quamquamstuk to Squalawinst. We thank the Creator for another beautiful day on Mother Earth. Creator, listen to our prayer. Thank you for bringing us together. Watch over us today. Please help us with our work and keep our thoughts strong. Creator, look over the people that look over our nation. We raise our hands to you. Hachkasiya.
Osiam, thank you so much. I was talking the other day with somebody and they were commenting about the work where the elders are teaching the young ones and remembering to mentor our young ones. But I had reflected on the fact that it's our young ones now that are learning the language, that are sharing it with us and teaching us. And I want to thank you, Jessica, and all of your colleagues in your cohort that are learning the language and going through the program and sharing it as Spalachtawood had done earlier, and showing the work of their hard work from their education in learning the language and bringing it to our table and connecting us with our ancestors who were forbidden from using the language so many, many years ago. So thank you so much for starting us up in a good way, Jessica. I'd like to welcome Summer Williams as our featherweather tonight. Is this your first time doing it? Thank you, Summer. It's always exciting to have new youth come in to do this work. Please remember that this is Summer's first time doing this, and let's set her up for success by when you want to ask a question, please raise your hand high, as she might not recognize the ancestral names that I might be using, and she might not know where you are sitting immediately on the first few times that you might ask a question. Thank you, Summer, for being here. We're very happy to have you doing this work, this important work for us. So with saying that, I would like to remind everyone, um, as are our custom, to make sure that you wait for our feather runner Summer before you speak. She will pass you the feather, and then when you are finished speaking, to return it back to her, so that we can honor the protocol that we've established for the decorum of how we speak with each other and share. Uh, I'd like to also mention that Legislature Marianne Adams and Legislature Kuyakuya Andrea Jacobs would have loved to be in here tonight, but had to send their regrets as they were unable to participate tonight. So we will miss their presence for sure, but and hope that they remain well in whatever activities or things that they need to be doing. I just want to mention that playing no favorites with Legislature Kuyakuya. When Don Williams, when it comes to your turn to raise your hand. So, but that's okay. You can run a little faster towards her if you like. Before we get into our agenda, I'm just going to remind everybody, as I said the last time, please put your phones on silent, except for the person who's no longer here that had their timer on for Mark's presentation. That was brilliant. But please remember to put one phone on silent, and if you have two, please put both phones on silent. We really appreciate that. We know that business does happen, or family does need to get a hold of you, and if that's the case, as long as it's not disruptive with your ringtone. Let's see, that brings us, let me put on my glasses here now, just because I need a little bit more focus here. For tonight's agenda, we're going to start with a report from the Advisory Council on Bill 001-2025. And then next we'll have the second reading of our Schedule 1, which happens to be the first schedule that we're also going to be reviewing, the Finance and Government Services Schedule, and which we will then proceed with some questions and debate. We will then follow with the second reading of Schedule 2, the Policy, Strategy, and Communications Schedule. Next, we will have a second reading of Schedule 6, Taxation, and then we will conduct a second reading of Schedule 8, Member Financial Benefits. So we have a lot of work on the table tonight. Are there any questions for tonight's agenda from the legislatures? Wonderful. Thank you very much. So moving on to our first item of the night, a report from the Advisory Council on Bill 001-2025, I would like to call on Director of Finance and Corporate Services, Mark DeMello, to give a report.
It's good, Squeakle CM. Thank you, Summer, for the feather. Legislators, I have the privilege of presenting the Advisory Council report. Advisory Council met yesterday, and there were 11 members in attendance, including 7 elected members of Advisory Council. So there definitely was quorum and a duly constituted meeting. There were presentations on a number of different schedules. It was a very long meeting, and I am grateful to Director of Municipal Services, John Jacobs, who joined me to help with presenting a number of the items. But I raise my hands especially to the members of Advisory Council who had to listen to 2.5 hours worth of budget presentations all in one go. The discussions are summarized in the report that you have in front of you, and I'm not going to read them all, but I will take you through some of the highlights of what was provided by Advisory Council as input. So the following input was submitted as consideration for you as you deliberate the bill. There were some operational issues that arose when we were discussing vehicles and the garbage can enclosures that are in the capital plan. Those issues will be referred to staff and dealt with. There are obviously concerns that are not necessarily direct budget issues, but things that the community has brought up and that we will address. There was a question again on the capital budget about the additions to the TFN Community Farm. And much like a number of the projects that are in the capital plan, the money is being provided at this point to undertake preliminary work. In this case, the specific question was about the barn, and the the answer that we were able to provide, as we did in a number of other occasions, was that staff are going to be doing the background work and developing the program more fully before we start working on those capital projects. The members of AC were supportive of the grant funding for renovations and new home construction being increased to $71,000 per unit. And then again, with respect to the work we're doing with the Elder Center and the old Elder Center, and we were very careful to point out that it didn't mean that only old elders got to go to the former Elder Center, I think is a better term for it. There were questions about whether elders would be consulted with in terms of how that building will be used in the future. There are a number of, staff noted that there are a number of possible requests at this point. We just need to do some upgrades to that building before further work is considered. There were a number of questions around parking. Again, those are going to be referred to staff for work on signage, etc. Again, related to the capital plan, there were questions about the new dog park that is being planned and whether the dog park was going to be accessible to leasehold residents and where it might be. Those are things that are still being worked on. I think as many of our answers yesterday related, we're just starting the work. We're putting money into the budget to ensure that we can do the proper process necessary. So you'll see that there was a similar question around the interim sidewalk that is being proposed for Tsawwassen Drive and which side of the road that was going to go on. Again, there's a lot of work still to be done before we can finalize that. The other thing I'd like to point out is there were some concerns about ensuring that the Longhouse work that is in the capital plan includes upgrades to the appliances, because there's some safety concerns around the current appliances, and staff were able to reassure members of the advisory committee that those are within the scope of what we're doing. And then finally, in looking at the police budget, there were some concerns raised about ensuring that continued cultural training was provided to the DPD, and staff were able to assure the advisory committee that advisory council that executive council is also focusing on this and working with the DPD and our language and culture team to ensure the continued support. So as Squeakle-CM, that is the presentation. Again, my gratitude to Advisory Council for putting up with us for such a long period of time yesterday and all the detail. And I hope to get the rest over the weekend because we're going to do it again with a bunch of different schedules on Wednesday.
Hechka, Mark, thank you so very much. And Hechka Hasaka to the Advisory Council. That's a lot of schedules to go through in one evening. We thank you for the work that you've done last night, and we'll thank you for the work that you're going to have to prepare for next week. Are there any clarifying questions about the Advisory Council report? Legislature Squamia, Melinda Cassidy.
Hechka Squeakquel and Hechka for the Feather Summer. I just want maybe a reminder or clarification. I thought the Advisory Council met prior to the schedules that we were reviewing. Looks like our agenda is Schedule 1, 2, 6, and 8, and they reviewed 3, 4, 5, 7, 11, 13, and 14. Yeah, maybe just a clarification on that. Thanks.
Hechka Legislature, Mark.
Hechka Squeakle CM. Thank you for the Feather Summer. It would have been really great to have also done schedules 1 and 2, but we're trying to cover what's going to happen today and on Tuesday, and capital programs and engineering services were really the bulk of what was there. I think before we get to third reading, some of the smaller schedules like schedules 1, 2, 6, and 8 can get covered off, will be covered off for sure. I think just jamming a lot more into the evening, which was already very full, would have been tremendously challenging. That's just quickly.
Squamia, do you have a follow-up? One second. Melinda, did you have a follow-up? And then it was Tehuilam after. Melinda, did you have another follow-up question? Sorry, Summer.
Hechka for the Feather Summer. Yeah, maybe I wasn't clear on my question. I thought the Advisory Council, like for their first meeting, would cover the same things we cover for, like, I don't know how I can articulate this properly. Since we are reviewing Schedule 1, 2, 6, and 8 this evening, I thought they review the same schedules as us so that we have their input while we're going through the schedules. Hechka.
Hechka, thank you, Legislature. Mark?
Hechka Squeakle CM, thank you again. Summer for the Feather. I don't think the issue was with the way the question was asked. It was the way I understood it. So my apologies. It would have been great to have also done 1, 2, 6, and 8. But we already had a lot to get through. So Tuesday's session, where we cover Schedule 3 and then 7 and 14, which are pretty hefty schedules. Those will have been done and reported on to AC. I think we would have liked to have got these schedules onto, we just would have had too much on the plate for the evening.
Hechka, Mark, thank you. I'll have to maybe think about how we advance going to the third reading of these schedules when we have a break. Thank you, Mark. Tehuilam, and then Sultanat, you're after Tehuilam.
Hechka, Squeakquel CM. I think Legislator Melinda Cassidy's question was more around the synchronicity or synchronizing of the agendas, like so then they could review. They're reviewing Schedule 1 as we're about to review Schedule 1 or whatever, and also Schedule 2, 6, and 8. So the question was more so around if they're gonna have that being synchronized with us so that we can be reviewing and talking about the same issues, so it's like aligned or whatever. I think that's what that was, just for clarification. I just wanted to thank Advisory Council for the report and agree with a lot of the things they have on there. Kitchen appliances for the longhouse being replaced, I think that would be good, or I'm not too sure if there's the need to look at doing a whole new renovation in there or whatnot, but that's something that maybe could be considered. And as for DBD, I'd like to see maybe like a meet and greet or something at Aboriginal Day, something where we can meet our officers that work here. Also, the signage, that'll be great to put up more signage to clarify things for our visitors. And also, I think that's also in the budget. We'll see that somewhere. There's monies budgeted for that. So look forward to that. And that's all for me for now. Haichka we'll see you.
Haichka Legislature. Legislature Sultanate, Loretta Williams.
Thanks, Summer, for the feather and Squeakle. And basically just a comment, you know, like I like the input that the advisory council gives us. And I'm hoping that we're able to, you know, raise, you know, like they raise a lot of concerns and everything else. And I hope we're able to do it for them and for our people. There's other things, but I'll wait till the schedules come up. Okay, Haichka.
Haichka Legislature. Legislature Pelihua, Don Williams.
Haichka Squeakle Siam, Haichka Summer for the Feather. Yeah, I really appreciate advisory's time. They covered a lot of topics and staff's time for last night's meeting. I will go through some of their comments when the schedules come up, but I just wanted to ask, I know in the past briefly we had one of the advisory members reading the report that staff provided here. I'm just wondering if there's anyone on advisory interested in reading these reports to us. Haichka.
Haichka Legislature Pelihua. I think this came up before, and I think that it's been staff's responsibility to present these reports. Perhaps that's something that we can take back to Executive Council to talk about the mechanisms and the opportunity for these things. So yeah, I just remember that this came up before, and it ended up being that it was the staff's responsibility to do that. So, but certainly we can make note of that and bring it back to Executive Council. Haichka. I'm just going to take a 5-minute break. I just want to consult with some staff about some things. So if I just can ask for a break here. 1 moment, please. All right, legislatures, thank you for your patience where I dug deep into my memory bank for some scenarios that were similar to this. So thank you, Legislator Squamia, for raising the order in which we received the advisory council feedback. This has happened before, and what we did was we deferred the motion to move the schedule to the second reading until after we received the report. So it kind of allows us to juggle it a little bit, and so I think what we'll do is we'll go through the presentation today for the schedules that we've had, and we won't move schedules that we haven't heard advisory council feedback on. And then at the next meeting, once we've heard from them, then we'll bring that motion to the table to move it to third reading, okay? Does that sound okay? If I could just have a nod or shake of the head, if that's okay for us to proceed like that? Right, thank you. Thumbs up, the old Zoom trick, thumbs up or thumbs down. Thank you so much. And like I said, we have encountered this in one scenario before. So Heichka. So with that, I'd like to bring the second reading for, this is where the second reading, the purpose of the second reading is for us to actually debate the substance of each of the schedules and ask questions for clarifying about the budget, what the impacts of the budget's numbers might be, what kind of things are you curious about regarding the budget. And I ask that we remember that this is about the budget, and that if we have specific operational issues that are not budget related, that we save those for other opportunities to raise them, but remain focused on the budget itself. So beginning the second reading of Schedule 1, I'd like to call on the directors and managers responsible for this department, and that's the Director of Finance and Corporate Services, Mark DeMello again, Manager of Government Services, Jen Jansen, Manager of IT, Brad Smedella, Manager of Human Resources, David D. Thank you, somebody. Desormo. That's it? Desormo. Sorry, David. Desormo. Okay. Thank you for putting the phonetic version, because if anybody noticed, I never say David's last name. So for the very reason that I don't want to flub it up. But thank you for your patience, David. And finally, General Counsel Mary. So when you finish each of your sections, just let me know, and then I can let Summer know who to give the feather to next. So who's up first? Jennifer Jansen. Summer. Jennifer is going to be the one that's speaking. Jennifer? Jen? Heichka.
Heichka Squeaklesium, and thank you, Summer, for the feather. So I'm going to be speaking about the new and improved Schedule 1, which is Governance and Legislative Services. This is a new schedule. It is a combination of departments that were previously in different schedules. So this schedule represents 4 different areas of the Tsawwassen government. It covers the Executive Council and the Office of the CAO, the office administration, so the front office and reception area, information management, and legislative support. So the department is, again, as mentioned, is an amalgamation of what was 2 separate departments previously. Reporting to the Director of Finance and Corporate Services, Mark, is myself, the Manager of Governance and Legislative Services. And then within the department, we have the Government Services Admin Support person. So this is a position that you may remember was unfilled for a couple of years that we tried to fill in the Government Services Department. I'm very, very happy to report that last year we were able to offer this position to Opal Dom, and she's doing very well in the position. She set up the snack table for me today, so she's doing a great job, and we're really happy to have her on board. The leasehold relations coordinators also fall under this department. So last year we had we had one leasehold relations coordinator, that was Brenda Wright, and she expressed a desire to go down to part-time. And we were also finding that the workload with the number of leasehold residents was growing beyond what one person could handle. So we expanded the team. We now have Bo Simpson, who is working full-time as a leasehold relations coordinator. He started in November, I think it was October. And then Brenda is now working 3 days a week. So we have 1.5 people in that position. And then we also have the senior EA and office supervisor, Courtney Chambers. She is also new. She started with us in January. And so she provides EA support to the CAO and executive council. And under reporting to Courtney is the governance clerk, which is Simi Upol. Simi does all the minutes of executive council and takes care of all of the logistics for executive council meetings. And then we also have our wonderful reception, Tavia, reporting to Courtney. So that's how the department is structured. So as I said, the administration area includes all the activities for the front office reception and the admin support for the main administration office. In this budget, there is a small increase of $5,000. This is to have a lease for a photocopier for the government services policy trailer, which is where my office and Opal's office are, and also the policy analysts. The lands department will also be using some offices in there. The photocopier that is in there is at past the end of its life. It was a photocopier that we inherited from the Not So Much Tribal Council, so it's past due for replacement. So we will be replacing that with a small but functional photocopy machine. It's not the Cadillac of photocopiers, but it'll get the job done. So that's the only increase in this area of the budget, other than COLA increases. Under executive governance, this area includes all the costs related to the operation of executive council and the office of the CAO. And it also includes general corporate expenditures, such as the budget for the judicial council, budget for corporate consulting, staffing contingency, and the corporate liability insurance. The annual report and budget update, the amounts that were put towards drafting and publishing those documents, which used to be in Schedule 2, has been moved into this schedule. But that is the only change other than COLA increases to this budget. For information management, so this includes the ongoing SharePoint implementation project and also includes management of hard copy records. So there's one new item in this budget. It's a $100,000 item. This is to do a pilot project related to scanning of historical hard copy records so that we can make these records accessible to staff. So this first year is going to be focused on a pilot project where we will be looking at what tools we have and how we can use those tools to develop a process for scanning and indexing of the documents, tagging the documents to make them searchable, and building a digital repository to store the documents. So that's going to take some work and with consultants to sort of figure out, map out what that repository would look like and how it would work and how we would move the documents from a paper through a scanner and into that repository, and then how we make those documents searchable and accessible to people. And we will be looking for 1 or 2 groups of records to sort of test it out with as a pilot project. And then once we have a process established and a repository set up, then we can, in future years, can undertake more of that work. So other than that, that's the only new item in this budget. Otherwise, the budget for this area is the same as last year. And then for legislative services, So this concludes logistical support for the Tsawwassen legislature, so everything that we're doing right now. And it also includes workshops and then, visiting delegations that come to visit Tsawwassen and learn from TFN. In election years, their funds for elections would be budgeted in this schedule. We're not anticipating any election this year, but this is where that would go. It also covers the coordination of the advisory council meetings and the consultation with leasehold residents and the management of the Leasehold Residents Advisory Committee, which Bo and Brenda oversee. So there are some nominal increases in this area of the budget related to increased costs for things like catering and mailouts and some other sort of increased operational costs. And then there are COLA increases, but otherwise there are no increases to this area of the budget. So that is my part of the presentation. I'm happy to take any questions that you might have. HK.
I think we'll wait to the end of the schedule to take questions once everybody's finished their presentations so that we can question the schedule as a whole.
Okay, in that case, the next person up would be David Desormeaux for Human Resources.
Hajka, thank you very much. David? Desormeaux? Desormeaux. 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 David. David Desormeaux.
Hejka, Squeakle Desormeaux is a French and it means from the elm trees. So you can just call me David. So I'd like to provide a overview of the key priorities in the Human Resources Department. Here are the key functions. So Crystal Lindstrom is she handles processes our pay and benefits. She's our payroll benefits and HR assistant. She ensures that everyone's paid accurately and on time. And regarding recruitment and staffing, this team, we're focused on attracting qualified staff to fill open positions with TFN members and prospective new additions, both locally and from across Canada. Is our priority. Sherry Jackson is our assistant manager of payroll, benefits, and HR, and she and I handle recruitment and retention. We're rapidly approaching 200 employees. We're maybe 198, I think, right now, so very close. You may have remembered, anyways, we have a new circle up there on our chart, and that is employment and training. So we're moving the function of employment and training coordinator from education and skills development into the human resources department. So the role formerly and capably done by Terry Baird will be moved into our department, and this person will focus on attracting or building up members and other individuals who are eligible for services, Indigenous in the area that are eligible for services that we get from funding through the federal government and other areas. I will, one moment. So this, just double checking. Oh yes, so this person also will be responsible for the summer student program and the intern program and a mentorship program. We've announced in the past a mentorship program, and we'll be looking to resurrect it, if you will, and enhance it and have better traction and better success is our goal, so that members of all ages can either do the summer student program or perhaps through mentorship, explore possible areas that they may have may want a career in, and find out through the mentors what it would take to get that. It might be further education or experience. And so that will be something that we'll be focusing on as a priority this year. So expenditures for 2025-26 are up by 2.5% compared to last year's projected actuals. With the addition of that new role, as I mentioned, there will be an increase in priority on learning and development for TFN members and other eligible Indigenous peoples through the employment and training services that we'll be taking on. Part of that 2.5% is a little increase in the targeted wage subsidies to ensure we have the funds to kick off a mentorship program. And this concludes the Human Resources presentation portion of Schedule 1. Hechka.
Thank you, David. Thank you for your presentation, and we reserve the right to bring you back up to the podium when it's time to answer any questions that the legislators might have. At this time, I'd like to invite Brad, Manager of IT, to come up and share his presentation. Brad?
Hechka Squickle CM. Hechka for the feather summer. I assure you, I think I know how to work this from the workshop. A little bit bigger buttons, so be able to advance. And you also pronounced Squickle. You pronounced my name accurately. Thank you. It's Medela. There we go. Next slide. So, a little bit about ourselves. This slide just essentially goes over various areas that we support TFN for and the technology side. Desk side, what we call desk side, is our service desk, where we staff email for different types of situations, hardware, software, as we call it in our industry. Could be related to cell phone problem, laptops, applications, onboard processes that we work with HR quite closely on. That goes through our desk side department or program. And then we get into really technical stuff on the network and server management, which is a lot of the back-end technology that broadcasts all across TFN. We have our data center that's situated at our sewage treatment plant, which is pretty much the heart of our communications, and all the different TFN buildings. We've got all networked across lands, and we support also people that are working from home as well. So all that infrastructure is included in there, plus backup and multiple site operations and business continuity, which is just a nice big fancy word for making sure that you all do your lovely work here and keep it going. For organizational productivity, we deal with that mostly as just describing software. A lot of it's software as a service, big technical term for cloud applications like Microsoft is a big one, Adobe. We have some applications we support locally like Tempest and GIS. New one we onboarded this year that Crystalline will talk about or has mentioned in the workshop, EMR application for our health team, and payrolls in there, which is really important to everybody. And that's kind of a general take on the productivity side. And then we did add a new bubble this year. There's a fourth one we brought back from a few years ago when I first started, almost 6 years ago, is projects and enhancements. So we felt there was a little bit of a gray area in terms of filling some gap for some small little things that come around, and we added it in here. We'll go into detail in the other slides on that one. This gives a good picture for the respected legislators on who we are. This is, if you see us around, running around, sometimes virtual, sometimes physical, around the TFN, this is the team. I like to say Professor Mark. I love that photo of him in there with the dog. I thought that was kind of neat to put in the center. And he's who we report to. I'm, of course, myself, Brad Smadello, manager of the group, and we have Oliver, who's our systems architect, Randy, systems administrator, Steve, administrator, and we added a new employee in December, Sean Sosa, who was in the affirmation on Tuesday. A little bit of growth for the growth of the organization. This is where the dollars we spend across TFN. So we are projecting in this budget a 20% increase from our last year's numbers and actuals. Some is reflected for the additional staff member, our growth from 4 to 5 in our core. We also have desk side, which increased by 32. And that's really to accommodate staff growth that we've projected from different departments and from what we've interviewed through the year and what is going to potentially take place in our 25-26 budget. And a lot of that's equipment, just accommodating laptops and cell phones and things of that nature to do their good work for you. We also have network and server management, which has gone down. We were able to squeeze in some of the bigger costs in this year's fiscal, which we were able to accommodate, and we saw a $72,000 reduction in that program. Organizational productivity is the big one. That one we did go up by a significant number. As you'll see, it's $302,000 here. Most of that comes out with our Microsoft licensing because we have to project for that staff, and that licensing per person is, it adds up. And it does include a lot of different tools within it. There's office productivity tools. Security is part of that across all the individuals that access the systems for staff, contractors, third-party contractors and such. And we also have in there as well as communication included in there as well. With projects and enhancements, this was a $70K. This was the one I mentioned in the earlier slide that had the new, we brought it back to accommodate some enhancements we couldn't fit somewhere else in the budget. And this is more of a take on some audio video enhancements that we wanted to do across boardrooms, and potentially we did add in there, there was some modifications maybe with the North Boardroom and the admin center with, I think there's some, we've heard some communication camera issues and things like that. So we're going to look at really deeply what we can do to improve that experience for EC and such in there. And I believe advisory council meets in that room possibly, but and some other projects in there that we were capturing. There was we had noted community farm project that we heard from Sean Jacobs, Director of Municipal Infrastructure. So we needed to capture some IT costs in there. We've heard about potentially some renos in the former Elder Center, which when they move over to the new one. So we are going to have to accommodate some tech in there to make some improvements. So we captured it in here. They sometimes get left out of the capital budget, so that's why we've added some dollars in here to make sure we're not bleeding from somewhere else. And then we're just kind of summarizing the cost increases for legislators' consideration. This is and Squeakquel. This is more about growth in this budget. So our numbers are really reflecting the growth still in the organization. From what we see, there's definitely some initiatives going on across that are going to happen in this fiscal. So we needed to just bring that across, capture that appropriately for the dollars that we need to spend there. We do have some technology changes. This bullet point talks about as technology changes. I mean, it's hard to keep up in some cases, but sometimes it's dictated by the vendors. Microsoft is ending life on some stuff, and we got to swap that out and keep up with change. So those are some of the things that are being captured in costs. And licensing costs do go up a little bit here as well with office productivity, security, audio video conferencing, internet connectivity. We've taken on a few new facilities, Elder Center, supportive housing. We've taken on potentially, can't forget about the cultural hub. That's a big one. So those are all captured in here as increases as well. So more scope we've taken on, and some cool projects and enhancements. I don't know if Chief wants this, but I know we did think about adding some renovations into her office for maybe like a little audio video space for herself for some meetings. She's got a very busy, our Chief is very busy, and I'm sure that may be something that could be very helpful for our Chief. And IT equipment, security enhancements, that's the last bullet point. I'm not going to beleaguer too much there, but that is really always our focus, protecting the organization and its interests, and so we are always working to try and keep that strong and enhanced with some enhancements there. And I pass the torch to my boss.
Thank you so much, Brad. Really appreciate your presentation. I'd like to invite our Director of Finance, Mark DeMello, back to the podium. Mark? Professor Mark?
Aichka Squeakquel CM, and legislators will have noticed the Squeakquel has no problem pronouncing my name. So just following on from David, DeMello means the laid back guy, DeMello. So the finance section of this budget, I'm sure the budgets were called Finance and Administration and Finance and Government Services because at one time finance was the biggest budget. I think we've been overtaken quite significantly because we're the cheap guys in this section. But within the finance group, we are responsible for property taxes and utilities. That's the team that brings in a fairly significant part of the revenue on the local government side with billings for all of our leasehold residents. We have financial systems and processes, which is a pretty fancy way of saying making sure the bills get paid and we're recording what we should be receiving and making sure we collect it and get it in the bank. The budgeting and financial reporting side, so all of the process that we've gone through to get the budgets built, and then the recording of our transactions and making sure that we have our fabulous annual report which of course the PIGA department takes credit for putting together, but it's really our numbers. And then finally, managing our trusts and subsidiaries. This is where a lot of our investment income work gets done. So this budget is $1.9 million. It's up $41,000 or 2.2% from last year. There are a couple of increases in particular that make up this change. There's $10,000 for increased investment advice. I hope, and I'm kind of counting on Jack Jameson, our investment advisor, not watching this so that he doesn't actually ask for the money. But it's there just in case, because we're now got a fairly expanded portfolio, so it's probably not too long before they come knocking at the door. And then there's an additional $30,000 for audit costs, mostly because of the Halalam Collective going to be operational. And with the Halalam Collective being operational, there'll be a lot more transactions within that that will be covered by audit, and so our audit costs are likely to go up. The Squeakle CM, that is it for our presentation, and I'll hand it off to Mary Childs, I think it is. It's a very difficult one to pronounce.
Hejtke, Mark DeMello, for your wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. I'd like to now invite our legal counsel, Mary Childs, to the podium for her presentation. Hejtke.
Yeah, thank you for the feather, and thank you, Hejtke Squeakle CM. I know this is the exciting part that everybody's waiting for, the legal budget, and I look forward to giving you a bit of information about what the legal department does and how much it costs for us to do it. Here's a diagram kind of showing the various aspects of the way this department touches on the work of all other departments. Basically, we're here to help everybody else do their job. So our responsibility is to make sure, for example, that HR has the support it needs to make sure that our employment issues are dealt with lawfully. We provide support to policy and intergovernmental affairs, for example, negotiating agreements with other governments, reviewing funding agreements, reviewing draft legislation and regulations that come out from other governments. From executive governance, we provide support to executive council and legislators if they have any questions about legal issues. My colleague Nicola does a lot of work with the Lands Department, both looking at a whole range of legal issues that come up in their work to make sure that TFN's interests are protected. For example, this past year, she did a lot of work on the incorporation of the Canoe Pass lands into TFN's treaty lands. My colleague Kyla works very closely with Economic Development Department, so she reviews and negotiates contracts that have to do with industrial and commercial development of Tsawwassen assets. And with respect to governance issues, of course, we help draft statutes and regulations, and we review policies. We do a whole range of things. In essence, we manage the legal functions for everything that the Tsawwassen government does. So every contract that is signed on behalf of Tsawwassen First Nation is reviewed by one of us. We make sure that there are no sort of contracts that haven't got an appropriate legal review. As I said, we draft laws, we draft regulations, we draft orders for executive council to make sure that all of the legal functions of the Tsawwassen government are done in the right way. We work closely with external counsel because even though there are three of us and we try to cover off a broad range of types of legal work, we still require assistance from specialists. So one of the things we did last year was work with external trademark intellectual property councils to file applications to protect Tuasin's logo as an official mark, which is like a higher form of protection than a trademark. And we work with external litigators with respect to a whole range of things. The Cowichan litigation over Aboriginal title claims in the South Fraser is an example, but we also have external counsel who assist us with litigation to enforce TFN rules with respect to trespass and encroachment on lands. We brought ourselves small claims actions to recover amounts of money owed by TFN. And generally, whatever the legal question is, we try to answer it ourselves, and if not, we'll find an external specialist who can help. The budget for this year is very little changed overall from last year's budget. Some of the things that have gone into it that I wanted to mention are just the cost of living increase in salaries. We've slightly increased the amount of money that we have for training, because one of the things that we're trying to do is make sure that we do as much of our legal work in-house as possible, so that we try not to rely any more than we have to on external counsel who are much more expensive. So we're always going to training to make sure that we're up to date with the latest legal developments, and my colleagues have been developing skills in new areas such as environmental assessment work, where we've traditionally relied a lot on external counsel, and as we develop our skills, we can do more and more of that work ourselves in a way that's more efficient for TFN. We have put, as you see, more money, or as you will see, more money than last year on external legal advice, and there are two aspects to that. One is we anticipate an upsurge in demand for some specialist external advice to do with the next phase of industrial lands development. And we've incorporated into the budget for external counsel the amount that is estimated as possibly necessary for the Cowichan litigation. That used to be in a separate budget, so what we have now is, instead of having one budget or one schedule that deals with government legal services and a separate one that deals with member legal services, which really was only the Cowichan litigation, they are now combined in one budget, which more accurately represents in this schedule the overall costs of legal work for TFN. Now, of necessity, there's some element of guesswork in this, because when legal issues come up, we have to deal with them as they arise, and we don't have the option of saying, we're not going to defend ourselves in that litigation, we're going to wait for another year when we have a different budget for it. These things have to be dealt with in a timely fashion, and we can't always predict the things that are going to arise. But to some extent we can, and we've been able to keep things within budget over the last few years. One thing that I want to mention that is new this year is that we have received a grant from the Law Foundation of British Columbia for a 2-year project to revitalize traditional Tsawwassen law and incorporate it into the laws passed by this legislature. And that's $125,000 for this coming year, and there'll be the same amount the next year. And I'm happy to advise legislators that in the most recent Executive Council meeting, Executive Council gave us some guidance about what law to focus on, and that's going to be the law that addresses community safety. So the aim of this 2-year project, we're working with a professor of Coast Salish law and another Coast Salish project manager. We're going to consult with the community and develop a methodology that can be applied to future revitalization and review of Tawasin laws. So this is just the start, we hope, of a project that's going to incorporate more Coast Salish and specifically Tawasin heritage and culture in our laws. So I have a small chart with comparison here. And for a change, I can tell you that our overall budget is down slightly from last year, 0.5% less. I added this up a couple of times because I wasn't quite sure that that could be true. But I've asked Mark to correct me if I'm wrong. Here you see last year and this year, our core budget is pretty much the same. We've increased the amount for external support, but that also includes the amount for the Cowichan litigation. But we really don't know how much that's going to cost. We had thought that by now there would be a judgment, but the judge hasn't come down with her decision yet. So we'll have to wait and see. And new for this year is that $125,000 that we are spending on the Coast Salish Law project. But as I said, that $125,000 is not coming out of TFN's budget otherwise. That's grant money that we have external funding for. That is everything that I have to say about our legal budget. I'd be happy to answer any questions that legislators might have.
Thank you so much, Mary. I think that's the end of the schedule. We've had all of the presenters. You probably can wait until questions come out about your session, Mary. Will I invite the legislatures? You probably can just have a seat down while we wait for legislatures to ask questions about the entire schedule. Thank you, Mary. Legislatures, you've heard the entirety of Schedule 1. We've had a number of presenters about government services, IT, human resources, general counsel, finance and corporate services. So please raise your hand if you have any questions about this particular schedule. Hajka. Legislature Halkamatia, Louise Alm.
Hi, Chikasquikosiam. I don't have a question, but I did go through the big binder with this stuff. But just for transparency, I got a request if the presentations, just because we have online members and the government and legislative services section didn't have the actual numbers from 2025 to this coming budget that were proven. Not even if it just had the number that the actual budget is, it just had the increases, some of the increases and changes in the costs. So just for transparency sake, it would be nice to have those numbers. And I'm lucky Courtney gave me a printout of the numbers, but I did go in the computer version. I know we have them at our fingertips, but some of our members on this table might not be so computer swift to keep bouncing back and forth to check the numbers, so it is easier for us to follow having those numbers. Hajka.
Hajka, thank you so much. I see Mark is nodding his head in acknowledgement for that area of improvement and transparency. Hajka Legislature. Legislature Sultanate, Loretta Williams.
Thank you for the feather. Thank you, Squeakle. I got a few questions, but then I think I'm going to start with our lawyer, legal. And the question is in regards to the Law Foundation project and with the Tawasin laws. And I think we need to have meetings about this, but also in regards to the TFN logos, the past and present. And I'm just wondering if, there's lack of a word here, like if everything's going to be protected, like in regards to our logos. So, and then the other legal one was in regards to the next phase of the industrial land development. I know this is a question I'll be asking Lance too, do we have any lands left for the industrial aspect of our life? Okay, that's it for the law.
For the law, from the law, Haitchka Legislature Sultanat. Mary? Turns out you're the first one back at the podium.
Thank you for the feather. Thank you for your questions. You were asking about the Law Foundation project. And the Law Foundation project, we just started it. We got the funding in January, so we formed a working committee internally. And we are using the funding mostly to hire some external consultants. There's going to be a whole process of, as you indicated, meetings and consultation with Tsawwassen members. The external consultant who is helping us with some of this work, Professor Morales, has done similar work before with other Coast Salish nations. And so a large focus of what we're going to be doing is using this particular law as to develop a process that can be used later on. And we're working with the Language and Culture Department as well to make sure that we do a proper, thorough, respectful, and culturally appropriate process. Does that address your questions? Thank you. And your question about economic development?
There was two other questions. One was about the logos, making sure that our logos, past and present, were protected, and the other one was about the lands, the industrial lands. Do we have any left, and how much do we have left?
Okay, so I'd leave that for the lands or economic development people.
Okay,
Mark?
thank you. Who's going to take that question? Mark? Haitchka. Thank you, Mary.
Haitchka.
Haitchka Squeakle CM. Thank you, Summer, for the feather. Legislator Sultanat, we have 180 acres more of industrial lands to develop.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think, too, that as far as copyright protections for our logos, we have those protections in play. I think that that's what Loretta, the Legislature Sultanat, might be asking, is making sure that we have those logos protected. Is that correct, Legislature? Yeah. We have the copyright protections for our logos. Does any staff answer that? Mary?
For the logo and also the name, basically the official marks, what we've done is we worked with a trademark specialist and we filed applications with the Federal Trademark Office. Now, normally a trademark is for a business. These are a special kind of trademark. Almost they're called an official mark. So something that a government uses rather than a business uses for marketing its goods. And so what that means is that, well, we filed the applications. There has to be a certain process that they go through to review them. But we've got confirmation that they've been filed. And once that process is complete, they go into an official register. And then if we find at any time that somebody else is using these, the logo, then we can take legal action to stop them. Because we did have an incident a couple of years ago where actually one of our legislators found a business that was using effectively the TFN logo to sell items. And so we were able to stop them doing that. But we have a much higher level of protection now that we filed this official application to register it. So it's not exactly like copyright. Copyright mostly applies to works of art and literature and things like that, but this is, it's more like a trademark, kind of official mark. And does that answer your question, Legislator Sultanat?
Haitchka, Mary, thank you so very much. Any other legislators have any questions about this schedule, schedule number 1? Legislature Laqualia, Tia Williams.
Hechka Squeakquel, Hechka Summer for the Feather. Let's see. My question is for Jen.
Jen, you might as well start walking up to the podium while she's posing the questions.
My question is more about what type of project. Hold on, I have my question here. What type of records? Because that's a huge undertaking, like legal documents or just administrative type things. And I think you mentioned it would be a pilot project, so just curious what that entails. Thanks.
Thank you for your question, Legislature. Jen? You're not going to get fooled by being up there too early and you're patiently waiting for the feather. Good job.
Hechka Squeakquel, Hechka Summer for the Feather. Yeah, I have done this a few times. Thank you for the question, Legislator Laqualia. At the moment, we haven't specifically identified what records we're going to start with. There are a few options, but the main focus will be working with our IT department and our SharePoint consultant and some other, other professionals as we need to figure out the best way to build a repository and to develop work processes for how we would scan the records and how we would store them and how we would index them. So there are a few options for what records we might target first. I have some in my office that we might start with. And so it's but it's difficult to say right now, like how many records we might be able to do as a pilot project or what would be the best place to start. But yeah, we do have a few, there are a few groups of records that I have in mind that we might, start with.
Thank you, Jen. So, we've identified that there's a great need for to have this project happen, and now we need to figure out the scope and what the pilot project can take on, and then create a model to replicate for the subsequent records. So the intention is to address all records, and but to get this project going, we have to start somewhere. So there's no clear record type yet, Legislature Laqualia, but we've known that there's been a need for a long, long time. Thank you, Jen. Legislature Sultanat, I understand you have a couple more questions. Is it for Jen? Do you not want her to leave? Jen, don't go anywhere. Thank you.
Thanks, Summer and Squeakquel. And this is just basically one of my questions, like what the previous legislator asked. And basically it's in regards to, we're doing we're transcribing the meetings and everything. Is that going to be part of an archival storage, like in the new cultural center? And, or is it going to be with the IT department? You guys will be working together with that? I'm thinking about old photographs and new photographs, and it's like a pictorial history. Okay,
Hechka, thank you for your question, Legislature. There might be two types of projects that are be talking here. One is operational documentation, historical documentation like that, and the other one is cultural documentation. Jen?
Hechka Squeakquel, Hechka Summer for the Feather. And thank you for the question, Legislator Sultanat. So the first focus of the scanning project would probably be on written records that are not currently stored digitally. So things that we only have in hard copy that are like written reports that that would be helpful for staff to be able to search for electronically. Right now, because they're in hard copy, it's very difficult to search for this material because there's no sort of electronic way of doing that. So that's the first sort of area of focus that we would be looking at. In terms of the the minutes and the record of proceedings for the legislature, most of those records are currently already exist digitally, and at least from the beginning of the Tsawwassen legislature, so from 2009 on, we already have those records digitally, and we are getting caught up on finalizing the record of proceedings for that's one of the projects that Opal is working on, and she's actually very much enjoying listening to older sessions of the legislature. But we are working on getting those getting caught up on those. But those are so those are already available. Eventually, those records would form part of an archival repository for the community, but currently they're still considered sort of operational records. So they're still part of the Tsawwassen government records. But yes, so photographs is a whole other area that doing that kind of a project with photographs requires a different approach than what you would take with written records. So I think we're going to start with written records and figure that part out first, and then eventually we would turn our attention to things like photographs. But written records are a little bit easier to start with, if that makes any sense. Heichka.
Heichka, Jen, thank you so much. In addition to digital searchability, once those paper records are put into a digital format, we also have the protection of backups in the unlikely event that any of those records, so that it protects that another layer of protection. This project will also allow us to build capacity, it sounds like, so that we can then take on some more complex projects like digital photographs, scanning photographs and things like that. So that's another thing. And it sounds like Opal's going to become an expert in our Legislative Assembly proceedings and things like that. Thank you. Legislature Tehuilam? Ms. Williams?
Heichka Summer for the Feather. Just a quick question. I'm happy that all this is going to be taken on, and there's a lot of valuable information and things that we could learn from or see what we've done in the past that's influenced the direction that we're going today and things like that. But just curious if will these records be made available to TFN members? Heichka.
Heichka Legislature Jen?
Heichka Squeakosiam, Heichka for the Feather Summer. Heichka for the question, Councillor Tehuilam. There will likely be some as we go through, we will likely be identifying some records that we would at a later date want to make available to the community. But in the initial stages, it would be for internal use. Again, the approach that you would take and the way that you would store the records, if you're making them accessible to sort of publicly accessible, is a little bit different than how you would do it if you're making them accessible within the closed network for Tsawwassen government. So the focus initially would be first on staff, but we would also be looking for and trying and identifying where records that we would at a later point want to make more publicly available and publicly searchable, and so we'll have that in mind, but that won't be the initial focus.
Heichka, thank you. They might fall under eventually or immediately under the Protection of Privacy Information Act that we have. So thank you, Jen. Are there any other legislatures that might have questions regarding Schedule 1? Just waiting to see if there were any other legislatures first, and then Loretta, you can go if there are no other legislatures that have any other questions.
Is this my third question? Or
Legislature
can I?
Saltanat?
Okay, thanks. This is for Human Resources, please. And thank you. So you mentioned the employment and training and for other Indigenous people to come to it. So is that Indigenous people from Ladner and Tsawwassen? And then another question, how many staff members have training for first aid?
Hechka, thank you for the questions. Sultana, it looks like David and Crystal are doing rock, paper, scissors to see who's going to answer this question. I think the skills training question can be Crystal, and then the medical training, the first aid training can be David. Hechka.
Hechka Squeakle CM and Hechka Summer for the Feather. The employment and training program is 100% funded by Service Canada, and that agreement, we've had that agreement in place for well over 10 years, and it is to service Indigenous people across Ladner, Tsawwassen, I think all the way up to 120th Street, so not quite Surrey, but it does cover all Indigenous people in this area, but with the primary focus on TFN members as a priority.
Hechka, Crystal, please hand the feather back to Summer. David?
Hechka Summer, Hechka Squeakle CM. Regarding first aid, I don't have an exact number for you, but I can say that we have an active and ongoing program to get as many people with occupational first aid level 1, which is the most basic one-day course that we have, and we have a rotating, probably about quarterly training where we we notify all the managers and say, anybody in your department need the training. We think it's good for all staff to have occupational first aid level 1, and just for your general information, could be anything from a paper cut to a heart attack, and it's essentially what the employee can do with this training to handle the situation until the ambulance arrives, essentially. So if I could hazard a guess, I would say about 40% or more have occupational first aid level 1, and that is for 3 years. So we also keep track of when they expire, and the managers do as well, so they can ensure that they don't expire and that we can get people up to date.
Hechka, thank you so much, David. All right. Legislature Spilaktuit, Terry Splukton.
Hechka Squeakle and Hechka Feather Runner. This question is for HR. Do the staff still have the option to work from home? Hechka.
Thank you, Legislature. David?
Hechka to the Feather Runner, and thank you for the question. Do staff have the option to work from home? That is up to the CAO, director, manager, kind of in that order. It depends on the division as well, and but ultimately that's the decision of the management and leadership, and many factors come into play. Business continuity. The closer we get to interacting with the community, the more likely that the staff will be required to work in person. That's a very common reason why we require staff to work from in person.
Hechka, David, thank you so much. Legislature Spilaktuit, you have a follow-up question? Don't go too far, David.
Hajka Squeakquel, thank you for the runner. Sorry, it's not a follow-up, I just have another question. Just looking at the recognition, I'm just wondering, do you have a guesstimate number, how many employees are going to be recognized this year? Hajka.
For years of service?
Yes.
So they're hitting milestones?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. David, do we have some milestones that are going to be recognized?
Hajka. I'm always just focused on the Christmas party when we do it, so I feel like I've got 10 months to figure that out. I do not know. It's difficult. I know that we've got 42 years and soon to be 43, and we do recognize increments of 5, or so. I do not know. I'm sorry. I can get that for you though.
Thank you. Perhaps
Hajka.
we can have that information when we come back, bring this schedule back to the table. Thank you so much, David.
Hajka.
Thank you, legislatures, for all of your questions. It's been a very fulsome discussion. We're not going to proceed as we normally would by having the motion to move it to second reading. What's going to happen is Advisory Council is going to meet on this schedule, and once we've received the report from them, then I will bring back a summary of this schedule, a little bit of a highlight of what the questions you have, and then I'll call for a motion to move this schedule to third reading. So we're just sort of getting our groove on here. The schedule is complete as far as I'm concerned from a discussions perspective. So I think we'll take a small break, maybe a I don't know, let's say 7-minute break. 7-minute break, Hajka. Legislatures, if I could get you all back at the table before we go back to resume our business. Oh, where is Tehuilan? Welcome back, legislatures. Thank you for that discussion, getting our warming up for our debate for schedules. I'd now like to move on to Schedule 2, Policy, Strategy, Communications. And that will require the Manager of Policy and Intergovernmental Affairs, Twyla Smith, and the Manager of Communications, Callum Robinson, to come up and present Schedule 2. Who's going first? Twyla, did you do rock, paper, scissors, or did you flip the quarter to see who got to go first? As a privilege, not as a punishment.
Heichka Squeakle and Heichka to the Feather Runner. Because I've been here the longest, I got that privilege. And happy to share that this year I'll actually be celebrating my 5th year milestone. So I think this is my 4th time here presenting to you the budget. Also a strange coincidence, Smith translates as being mellow under the elm tree. Who would have guessed? Just kidding. Okay, where am I here? So Schedule 2 has been impacted by the budget restructuring. So we've done our best to show the changes from last year where we can, but there are some big changes. So the schedule was previously policy and government services, and now it's policy, strategy, and communications. So the PIGA part hasn't changed. That's policy and intergovernmental affairs. We now have a section on communications and engagement, and that used to be nested within the government services section. So that has stayed while the rest of the government services functions have moved over to Schedule 1. And then we have a new area for strategic initiatives. So just to tell you a bit about the structure of this schedule, we will have a director of strategic initiatives. That position's currently vacant and being worked on right now. Once that person is hired, both myself and the manager of communications and engagement will report to them. And it's also the likely future home of the sort of talent and professional development section as well. The strategic initiatives is going to be further defined and functions added over time as that person is hired and working with Executive Council and the CAO. And as you can see here, I've listed the positions that report to me, and we have a proposed position under communications and engagement, and I'm really grateful to have been able to build up this team over the recent years. Okay, on to the policy and intergovernmental affairs section. This button's a bit sticky. There we go. Since most of our budget is for our staff, I really wanted to just take a few minutes to talk about the work that we do. So you could probably guess we have 2 major functions. One of them is policy and one of them is intergovernmental affairs. So the policy is the more internal facing function where we're working on developing and amending policies, regulation, legislation, and strategies. We do lots of research and engagement, drafting presentations, reports, and briefings, and supporting Executive Council, the legislature, community events, and publications. So lots of writing and reading. On the intergovernmental affairs side, we actually co-develop policy with BC and Canada. We negotiate fiscal and other arrangements. We engage and advocate for TFN's interests with other governments, primarily the provincial and federal governments, your treaty partners, and drafting correspondence and supporting political meetings. Like IT, we're one of those departments whose work really grows as the organization grows. So just wanted to talk a little bit about some of our active work and the things that drive our work. So some of the strategic policy work we've been doing are the strategic plan, which you're going to be hearing about next week. We've been working with the CAO to support strategic priority sessions with EC and legislature. We've been working with the treaty, working on the treaty periodic review, as well as the Ancestors Make Us Strong, the evaluation project, which I'm going to talk about a bit more on our last slide here. In terms of other policy work, we're really driven by things like new facilities. So for example, the Cultural Hub, the Elders Center, we work with those departments that run those facilities to make sure there's policies in place to guide them. Some of you may have seen Isabella this week engaging with elders about some uses for the new Elders Center. That'll feed into some policy there. When we have new and expanding programs and services, there's often a need to create administrative policies. So that includes things like eligibility and processes. When we have new managers, they often identify gaps and look for ways to improve consistency in service delivery, and we work with them to build new policies. And then, of course, there's always work to review and update older laws, regulations, and policies, some going back 15 years. So always lots in that area. And then on the intergovernmental side, we have a few collaborative tables that we work at. The Land Claims Agreement Coalition, that's a federal level table where we work with the other self-governing nations across Canada. There's the Alliance of BC Modern Treaty Nations, where we work with the treaty nations here in BC. There's currently 8 at that table. And then we have collaborative fiscal negotiations tables with both BC and Canada. Treaty implementation is another area. And then we also engage with Canada and BC on their initiatives while advocating for TFN interests. So anytime either government is updating a piece of legislation, implementing their UNDRIP action plans, those types of things, they reach out to us and we review and engage with them on those. Okay, on to the budget. So on the revenue side, we do have a decrease in revenue this year by about 100,000. The first one is funding that had been stable in the BC Fiscal Finance Agreement, 110,000. So PIGA this year was able to actually negotiate about $1.2 million in new funding, but that is in the lands and resources management area, and one of the trade-offs in that negotiation was the loss of this funding. So it looks like a loss for us. But overall, we did increase funding. The Declaration Act Engagement Fund stays the same. We have an additional 100,000 this year related to climate change work. And then we are expecting some capacity funding. This is something that's difficult to estimate, and it comes in from those transactional engagements I just mentioned. There's often capacity funding available, but we don't know in advance how much that'll be. But each year we're able to bring in some capacity funding to support there. On the expenses side, we have an increase of 337, just about 338,000, or 24% from last year. So the majority of that's in the core, and I'll talk about what's driving these changes on the next slide. Policy support and due diligence is up by 100,000. Our intergovernmental affairs has actually gone down by 52,000, and then we've increased a small amount, 2,500 for community engagement. So the changes, as I mentioned, that funding from the province has been discontinued, but we did get the one-time funding for the climate change policy work. On the core, that increase is related to the cost of living allowance. We've added one new position this year in order to bring on a TFN youth, Isabella, who's here with us tonight. We've been just so grateful to have her working with us a couple of summers, and now that she's finished her undergraduate degree, she's got a little bit of a gap in schooling, and we're glad to have her back. I am expecting this position just to be for this year because she is expecting to start a master's program, and so sadly we'll lose her again. But very excited for her next journey. And then we've added an additional 10,000 to the travel budget. That's just related to, as we've come out of the pandemic, we're traveling a bit more, and the team's a bit larger as well, so just a little bit more travel happening. I reduced the consulting budget for the intergovernmental affairs. That's been a sort of contingency bucket we've had for the last few years, and I just found I wasn't using it, so decided to decrease that down. And then we have 100,000 for the Ancestors Make Us Strong project. A few highlights for this upcoming year. The first one is that project, the Ancestors Make Us Strong, which you may have heard me talk about as the evaluation project. That name was chosen through some survey work, started at the members gathering and online, so chosen by members. And we have a partnership for this with some researchers out of the University of Victoria. It's going to be a member well-being survey that we're doing for the first time since 2012, and that'll really support program and policy evaluation. It'll help us understand how members are doing, what are the areas that more support is needed, and really help us to target our work. It's going to include an in-depth interview component as well as a more kind of quantitative survey component. And then we're also doing what's called Youth Photo Voice, which is a really cool methodology where we're going to be working with youth to have them take photos or video, and then they'll describe, they'll add some of their words alongside that. And so we're using that methodology with the youth rather than a more standard kind of survey format. So we're really excited to get that going, and we're expecting to be some capacity building around film classes and that sort of thing. We're really trying to make it fun for youth to participate. We're also going to be doing some engagement this year on the Youth Council. That was a resolution that was brought forward by this legislature, and we want to make sure that we build something that meets the interests of the youth. So we're starting with some background research as well as some engagement. And then I think by the end of the year, we'll be able to bring forward some recommendations on actually establishing a council. That's another project I'm glad to have Isabella working on. We've got the continuation of the work from the last session to amend the Election Act, so more engagement coming on that. And of course, the periodic review, working towards some treaty amendments. Quite a lot of work to do there in terms of engaging the community on what we've learned so far, and then actually negotiating some amendments. So we've been looking closely at some of the newly initialed treaties across the province. The province and Canada have approved some new mandates in those treaties that we see some things that we think could be improvements, and we'd like to get out and talk more to the community about that and actually see them through in the treaty. So lots more to come on that this year, and it's going to be a big focus for our team. The strategic initiatives part of the budget is the new piece. So this is really the for the office of that new director. The majority of the budget is for the core, so that includes the wages, travel, training, and supplies. And then there's also a bucket for some strategic projects. So as I mentioned, this area is really going to have to be developed with the CAO and Executive Council and work plans created. I don't have a lot of information about that right now. We'll have to wait for that individual, but we wanted to make sure there's some budget available for them to do some work when they get in. As I mentioned, this is also the area where we're expecting to see the kind of talent development piece. So that could include professional development for staff, but as well as the many kind of education initiatives we talked about for the legislature and Executive Council, as well as in the community. Maybe the financial literacy for youth could maybe live in this area. Really looking to develop some curriculum and learning opportunities for the community and for the government. And with that, I'll pass the feather back to the feather runner and to Callum.
Thank you so much, Twyla, for that very detailed presentation and thorough presentation. When her slide comes back up later, I don't know if one of our language speakers can help me translate the wording that was on that represents the Policy Development Department. But in the meantime, Cal, if you want to come up and present your part of the schedule, I'd greatly appreciate that. Cal?
Aichka Squeakle, Aichka Summer. Yeah, so first time here. Go easy on me, please. I just want to take a minute to introduce myself to the people who don't know me. A few of you do. My name is Callum Robinson. I spent the last few years as the communications manager for Métis Nation British Columbia. I worked on a lot of, I worked with every ministry, from grassroots initiatives to big policy issues. I'm a proud Métis citizen. I have roots in the Red River and Turtle Mountain, and I'm deeply committed to supporting Indigenous communities, which is why I'm excited to be here. I'm keen to bring my experience to TFN. While I'm still new here, I'm excited about what I've seen so far, and I look forward to building capacity to help TFN and its members. It's clear that communication has been seen as a gap at TFN, both within the community and externally. I'm really looking forward to working with both the community and staff to improve communications and keeping everyone informed. My goal is to not only enhance the communication within TFN, but also build profile in Metro Vancouver as TFN continues to lead as a modern treaty nation. I'm excited to showcase the strength and resilience of this community to a wider audience. And with that in mind, let's look at some areas I want to focus on. So member engagement and member communication, I think these are two sides to the same coin. So for member communication, if we can reach broader audiences within the community, that then opens a channel to get better feedback and engagement towards TFN, so it informs the work we do better. So it's a two-way street there. And then there's external communication, so that's telling the stories of TFN to audiences outside of the community, and that's telling the TFN story. That's not telling someone's rendition on the TFN story. I think that's a key component there. And then there's internal communication, so keeping staff informed. This boils down to 2 points for me. One is we have member staff, so keeping them informed, and the other is we have a lot of staff that do interact with members on a daily basis. So if they're being asked a question that's maybe not part of their department, they know where to go, who to ask, that kind of thing. So we just seem more cohesive as an organization. And then building capacity to meet these objectives. So some projects I want to look at tackling in the next year is building engagement plan, and then build out further communications channels. So again, those two work hand in hand. The more people we reach, the better feedback we get back to TFN, and the cycle continues. Creating internal communications plans to make sure I'm getting the information from the departments and I can disperse that out to staff. Revise the TFN website so information's found better and easier, and create a communications plan for TFN that is informed by the new strategic plan. So we can kind of map out the road, we can see the benchmarks and track some KPIs. And then develop a media relations strategy to, again, build the profile externally, tell the TFN story, and proposing creating a new communications and engagement specialist role to support in achieving these objectives. So as you can see with the budget, it's not a big increase at all. Giving Mark a run for his money. So we got core wages, travel, training, internal communications, so doing an internal survey, what we can do better, how people like to be communicated with, looking at digital asset management tool. External is print publications, digital media contracting, so some videos to kind of do some storytelling, and there's issues management, so media monitoring and media training, and then community engagement for travel and food for all the nice engagement sessions we'll have with the community. Aishka.
Hechka, thank you so much for your presentation, Cal, short and sweet. Now I'd like to open up the floor to the legislatures for any questions for Twyla or Cal. Legislators? Legislature of Sultanate?
I don't know, must be a hereditary thing for the family to be light-footed. Okay, thank you for the feather summer. And Callum, I heard that you're a photographer, and I'm wondering, you know, like if our other photographer, she's away for a while, but would you be able to fill in and take pictures of events? Because actually, I'm just thinking about the other night. I'm not too sure if anybody took pictures of our regalia, you know, because we got to honor the people that basically made it and followed through with it, and part of our historical archives. And that's, and just one other question, since I'm allowed to. You have communications, you do social media for, yeah.
Hechka Legislature, and just as a warning, Cal, wait for the feather to come to you before you speak, otherwise we'll fine you and punish you. Just kidding, Cal?
Hechka. I don't know who told you I was a photographer. You might have some Fox News sources, but I do dabble in some photography. I can for sure build out some proactive dates where I can come take photos, and last session was a missed opportunity. I should have at least had someone here to take some photos, but as we build out a content calendar for the year, I would for sure love to capture all the moments. Yeah.
And then the question about social media?
Yes, I do manage social media, and that's there's a few options we can look at, but that's one of the focuses I want to look at, especially when connecting with youth, is where do they interact? What platforms do they use? How can we use them to reach the youth and different audiences within TFN?
Hechka, Cal, I think that there's already been an increased social media profile since your arrival here. Legislature Spiloctowit, Terry Spluckton. Any questions about the budget?
Hechka CM. My fellow legislator already took one of my questions, but I guess I'll go with Twyla. Could I please get clarification on the Canada Indigenous Climate Change Agenda? What that is used for? Hechka.
Thank you, Legislature Spiloctowit, Terry. Twyla?
Hechka for the question, Hechka Squeakle, and to the Feather Runner as well. That funding is actually for a project initiated by Canada, and it has two parts. So the first part is actually for us to engage with Canada on their climate agenda. So, for example, they provide funding to First Nations about climate change in something like 47 different programs, proposal-based, and what they really wanted to do was talk to First Nations and Indigenous people across Canada about how they can better support Indigenous people with their climate priorities and streamline their operations and basically have more of an Indigenous voice in their own climate agenda at the federal level. So that's one piece, and we've been working on that for I think about a year, and Councillor Cross actually has been engaged at the political level on that one as well. And then the other piece of that project is internally, what we're doing is building a, what do I want to call it, like an intergovernmental guide about TFN's climate priorities. Because we, in that stream of engagements from the province and Canada, we get many, many engagements related to climate or environment and all kinds of different things, greenhouse gases, and it's not always easy for us to know which ones are important to engage in and what we should be saying at those. So what this guide will do is actually bring together what TFN's climate-related priorities are to help us make those decisions internally about what we should be saying, which ones we should engage in, and guide us to where we need to be searching for funding to actually meet TFN's needs. So that's largely been a desktop piece where we've pulled from the various engagements that have taken place on the Sustainability Charter, Honoring Our Ancestors Charter, engagements we've done on the strategic plan. We've combed through notes of the Natural Resources Committee, like those types of resources to determine what those priorities are. And so that's a piece we're still working on right now. Now, that funding that we've received, don't tell Canada this, but it's a little more than we need to do that work. So it's actually allowed us to bring on a junior analyst who's helping in some other areas as well on the team. So she's been helping out with some of the enrollment committee work. Our kind of coordinator who does a lot of the admin work is actually off on medical leave right now, so she's slotted in and helping with that. So it's brought that funding has brought capacity to the team overall, as well as supporting that climate work. Hechka.
Hechka, thank you so much, Twyla. Perhaps we could organize on a night where we are all present, where we could come in our regalia and have a picture, group picture taken. And then if there was anybody that had any pictures, please forward them to staff so that we can have a little bit of a record on that. Thank you so very much. Any other questions? Sultanat, did you have a follow-up question or another one? I kind of saw your hand and then I wasn't sure. Do you have another question, Sultanat? Okay, Sultanat?
Okay, thanks, Summer and Squeakle. This is for the Strategic Initiative Budget, pro-development for staff. You know, like, can you explain more about the pro-development?
Hechka, thank you. Twyla?
Twyla, yeah.
Or Quintiltonat? Our CAO?
Heichka Summer. Yeah, it'll be professional development. The pro development is short for that. And we're trying to invest in staff in a number of ways to deal with cultural training. And so we would leave it for the new strategic initiative director to work with the restructuring once they are on board to do more proactive kind of training for staff on a variety of issues.
Do you have a follow-up, Sultanat?
Thanks for your patience, but I'm a nosy person. So anyhow, this also includes our local Delta cops that are here for the cultural training. Okay, Heichka.
Thank you for that follow-up question, Sultanat. Quintiltonat?
Thank you. We're trying to make them pay for their own training, but we are consistently communicating with Delta Police that they need the cultural training regularly. It's been delivered once to everyone, but with all the changes and stuff, maybe Crystal can respond to the future plans.
Thank you very much, Quintiltonat. Crystal? Lakwia?
Heichka. About a year and a half ago, we did some cultural training with all of the Delta Police members, about 240 of them, over 8 sessions. And it was really good, but we're planning on doing it again. So we're hoping to do it every 2 years with all of the Delta Police officers. And yeah, so we just recently talked about this about 2 months ago. So we're trying to schedule it. It takes a long time for all of the officers, but yeah.
Heichka, thank you so much, Crystal. Tehuilam, Legislature Tehuilam.
Heichka Summer for the Feather, Heichka Squaykle CM. Just a question on this strategic initiatives director. It says the what is it? Further defined and functions to be. Their roles can be further defined and functions will be added over time. What functions does staff foresee being added to that, and what other definitions or anything might be added to that? Heichka.
Heichka, thank you so much, Legislature Tehuilam. Quintiltonat?
Heichka, so far we had talked about, and Executive Council had approved, notionally moving over intergovernmental relations. We had talked about maybe policy as well, but we hadn't decided because council approved that strategy well over a year ago. So we left it kind of open to see how the new positions that we've hired in the past year and a half have been working out with new directors and such. So the other thing we had talked about is moving over and restructuring employment and training into a talent department. Some of that restructuring is happening, and currently it's reporting to Mary, but the idea would be with this final director being brought on board that some of those more strategic areas of talent development and our external relationships and other things would come under one director. Does that, yeah.
Heichka, thank you so very much. This is the continued work for that organizational evaluation and realigning different pieces of work. And I think we're now living it, and that's why some of these things are like a living document as we see how these things work and fit in together. So it's good to see that we're on this part of the journey for our organizational work. We've done a lot of work in the last little while to get where we are, and we're starting to see the positive impacts of some of these changes. Any other questions, legislatures? Legislature Pelihuia, Dawn Williams. Summer, she's the one right here, the lady over here. You may not know her that well.
Heichka Squeakle Sam, Heichka Summer for the Feather. This question is for Callum regarding the community engagement. Can you confirm, is this for the Vernon and Bellingham engagement sessions? And if so, these are 2 times per year, like one in the spring and December? Hichka.
Hichka, thank you for the question, Legislature. Cal?
Hichka. Yeah, so we put a draft engagement plan together, and it would involve 2 waves. So a spring and a fall. That would be Vernon, Bellingham, lands meetings, family meetings, and online. So we're trying to, and then also from our side of things, we're trying to really gather all the information internally, so we don't have to have as many sessions per se. But we can kind of, so we can reduce engagement fatigue kind of thing, and get, once we have people together, we can kind of do things more efficiently and streamline it. But yeah, that's the overall plan right now. Where it'll obviously, we'll have to adapt as we go, but that's the draft plan right now.
I think, though, is that specific budget line that you presented for engagement, was that specifically for Vernon and Bellingham? I think that was your question, was it, Alithia?
Yes, it was.
So yes, thank you.
Sorry, that could have been a shorter answer.
That's okay. Thank you. Your answer was very concise. I appreciate that. Are there any other questions from legislators? Legislature Laqualia, Tia Williams.
Hichka Squickle, Hichka Summer. This is about the communication engagement. It's more of a comment, but looking at all of the project highlights, everything is very important. We've been needing this for a very long time. One thing I'm really looking forward to is the external communications portion, just given that there's so much information about Tsawwassen First Nation available, but yet sometimes people don't actually know that much about us, and our narrative is sometimes told for us on our behalf. So I'm looking forward to us taking the reins and controlling that a little bit more. We've got so much information, so much, just a wealth of knowledge to provide, just with our local governments, and so you've got your work cut out for you.
Thank you for your comments, Legislature. All right, just open the floor for a little bit longer before we move on. Any other questions from legislators that have not had a chance to speak yet? All right, any final questions or last questions for this schedule for all the legislators? All right, legislators, thank you so very much. That completes this schedule. Thank you very much, Cal. Thank you very much, Twyla, for your work. Can you just put up Twyla's presentation quickly? I just wanted the pages, see one of the pages, and I'll just give our language speakers a second to look at it, and then not publicly ask them to speak, but maybe privately. Oh, Crystal, do you know how to say it? Oh, all right, hang on. Just curious, I really appreciate seeing the language on that schedule. So if you can just look at that word and think about them. I see Snachman, Skakasen, but I'll let them, are you going to give it a try, Crystal? All right, Crystal, please. Where's Summer? There we go. Thank you, Summer. Sorry, Summer, I'm just sort of doing on the spot flying here.
Thank you. I'm going to attempt this.
Okay.
Schnelfman, Schwakakachen.
Thank you very much.
Snelfman, Schwakakachen.
Excellent. Thank you so very much. I appreciate that. So legislatures will be actually voting on this schedule once we've heard the report from the Advisory Council. And at that point, I will summarize the activities that happened today, and then we'll vote on it then. So thank you for your work thus far on this schedule, which now allows us to move back to Professor DeMello. So the second reading of schedule number 6 of Bill 001-2025, the taxation schedule. Director of Finance and Corporate Services, Mark DeMello. Hichka.
Hichka Squeakle CM, thank you for the feather, Summer. I Actually, Squeakquel, Professor DeMello is my older brother, so I think he's going to be a little upset at me for stealing his thunder. The taxation schedule, I think I've said before, is our quickest and easiest schedule to speak to. It's got two components: local government taxation, which essentially consists of the budget for tax levies that TFN collects on behalf of Metro Vancouver, BC Assessment, and TransLink. We collect and remit based on rates that they set. And so really whatever the number we have in our budget, it doesn't really matter because it's fully offset by revenues. This year we anticipate an increase from 1.8 million to 2.2. When we get the real numbers from them in probably April or May, it'll be after the budget's set. But again, it doesn't really matter because we collect whatever we have to remit. The member government taxation portion of the budget is a little different. This is the budget that covers the cost of the homeowner grant that's claimed by residents on TFN lands. So we've budgeted exactly the same amount as we did last year. So typically the homeowner grant it's a provincial program. It's provided by the provincial government to residents who live on municipal lands, and it helps to offset the school taxes that they pay. In those cases, the school taxes go to the province and then back to the school districts to fund educational services. On TFN lands, the school taxes that residents pay go not to the province, but they come to TFN, and we make roughly $6.8 million a year from that. In return, we provide the same sort of homeowner grant. So ours is a homeowner grant equivalent. It's the same grant that a resident would have been able to receive had they lived in Delta or Richmond or Surrey, some other BC municipality. So it's essentially the cost to us for the ability to keep the $6.8 million in revenue, and so is a very good investment. I wish all our investments performed this well. Squeakquel CM, that is it for this schedule. I'll pass the feather back to Summer.
Hajka, thank you so much, Mark. Appreciate your presentation. Legislatures, do you have any questions with respect to this schedule, the taxation schedule? All right, thank you so much, legislatures. Again, we will vote to move this to the third reading once we've heard the report from the advisory council. This moves us on to schedule number 8, member financial benefits, and this brings the back to the podium our favorite finance speaker, Mark DeMello, or Mark DeMello.
Hajka Squeakquel CM, it's great to be the favorite. I guess it's it also helps when I'm the only finance speaker. So the member financial benefits schedule, Schedule 8, consists of 2 components: TFN member distributions, which houses the budget for the quarterly distributions to members, as well as the once-a-year payment from the Legacy Trust. We've budgeted the Legacy Trust at the same amount as last year, and we won't know quite yet until the Trust Society audit is complete as to how much that money will be. I'm hoping it will be more than last year's, but at this point, it's more a hope than anything else. In the budget, though, our quarterly distributions have been maintained at the $1,000 that we have provided every year. But in the 2024-25 budget, there was an additional $500 that was budgeted for and that was made as an additional December distribution. This year, we've added another $500 per member. So there's now $1,000 available for an additional distribution. And the budget at this point simply provides for the extra money. Executive Council will decide at some later date how that extra $1,000 will be distributed. It could be $250 so that the quarterly distributions go up to $1,250. Could be a $1,000 bonus at Christmas, or I've heard suggestions that it be paid in January to help pay off those Christmas bills. So there's all kinds of different options. The important thing is that there is an extra $500 in the budget, and that the entire budget now reflects both this higher amount and an increase in the number of TFN members. In the 6 or so years that I've been at TFN, we've seen membership grow from around 490 to about 550. So that's been an awesome growth over the years. It does mean, like, IT's budget for desktop services and so on, which have gone up because the number of staff has increased. Our distribution budgets are going up because the number of members has increased. The second part of the budget is member financial benefits. So this budget covers the various benefits that are provided to members, like the provision of payment towards home insurance, the benefit that we pay to TFN, the parents of TFN children, or directly into the Miners Trust for TFN children, and then the elders' cultural benefit, which is the benefit you get when you turn 55 or 60, or the monthly pension that's paid out for TFN members who are over 65. The budget's gone up very slightly to $1,053,000. It's basically gone up because on the one hand, while we have expecting fewer people hitting the elder milestone ages this year, and that budget has dropped, the increasing number of members is coming from children, and the increasing number of children just means that the costs of our child benefit program have gone up. This is always good news, and we've continued to see growth, and really, really happy that we're able to continue to fund member benefits. And that's the presentation for Schedule 8. Squeakle CM, Heichka.
Heichka, Mark, appreciate your presentation. Legislatures, please, the floor is open for questions. Legislature, spell out to it. Terry Spuckton.
Heichka Squeakwell, thank you, Feather Runner. Just looking at it's great to see the increase for the member distribution. And I know that Mark had mentioned that that EC will be making a decision at a later date. And also, he was mentioning that it could be distributed in January. So would that mean that we would lose out that extra this year? Heichka.
Heichka Legislature Terry. Mark?
Squeakle CM, thank you, Summer, for the feather, and thank you for the question, Legislator Spiloctowit. I don't know what EC is going to determine. If they choose to pay $1,000 in January, it would mean that the Christmas bonus is basically being moved to January. They could pay $500 in December and $500 in January. There's really a whole host of different ways that that could be done. I think the important thing at this point is getting the money into the budget so that we have a chance to put EC under some challenging questions about choices like that.
Heichka, thank you. And I think if I understood you correctly, Legislature, this year, this fiscal, we didn't budget for that. The extra that Mark's talking about is for next fiscal. So, okay, excellent, Heichka, thank you. Any other questions, legislators, for Mark's presentation? Wonderful, thank you so very much, Mark. Again, legislatures, we'll be moving this to third reading once we've heard a report from the Advisory Council. We have progressed through these schedules and we're warming up for this legislative session. We've done proceeded quite nicely. This means that we have completed our hard work for tonight. Thank you again for your time away from your families, your curious questions, being present and supporting each other and supporting staff. Thank you to staff for all the hard work and the preparation that you've done in presenting this information in a clear way so that we could be making some healthy discussion, and we'll be making some of our votes when we move it to the next schedule. It's always good to have our work supported by our culture and by our members who support that culture. So I'd like to extend our gratitude and our thanks again to Jessica Adams for starting our session in a prayer and sharing the language, for both Connie and Jessica for this ceremonial procession to bring us in, and thanks ahead of time for the ceremonial procession and helping us exit. Summer, where are you, Summer? Where are you? There you are. Thank you so much for all of your running tonight. I think that the legislature has kept you on your toes. I really appreciate you being here, being part of our youth and being a feather weather. You did a fantastic job for your first time. We hope that you come back and you do this work again. My hands are raised to you for being here in this very important role. Thank you, Summer, very much. Want to thank Chris for Ramsey's Catering. It was excellent food that nourished us and a good experience for a young member caterer to come out and provide for his legislatures. So thank you very much for Ramsey's Catering for the work and the meal for us. I also want to extend a thank you to Legislature Spiloctowit, Terry Splocton, and Kwemasot, Angeline Splocton. Again, want to just extend that gratitude for blessing our table and make sure that we had taken care of our meal in a good way. I also want to thank, most importantly, want to thank our elders and our advisory council and our members who are here to observe in person and online. We really appreciate your support in this work that we do, because we do that work for you. So thank you so much for being there, either in person or online, to support us. And again, an echo to staff for being away from your families. These are long weeks and days. We know that not only do you meet on the days that we are here, you meet on the days for advisory council as well. Some of you have a few more miles to drive home than others, and it's just for long days. And we sure hope that you get some rest when you can, and know that we really appreciate all that hard work and the preparation for the work that we do today and tonight. And also want to just say thank you to any guests that are observing us or being present in that. knowing that we're coming upon a weekend, and what is that weekend day on Monday but Family Day? That's an important day to recognize, and family can be anything. It can be blood, it also could be what you make it. And you are all my Tsawwassen family, and I celebrate you on Monday. Take time to be with those ones that you want, or if you want a little quiet time to yourself, that's okay. Maybe you need a break from family, who knows? So family could mean to rest for a minute, and family could mean to getting together, but I hope that you take that long weekend and you fill your souls with love and laughter and be with the ones that you choose to be with. So as I wrap up this evening, I want to say this concludes the work of our Legislative Assembly for this session, this meeting today. I want to thank you all, HECHCA, OCM, for the privilege and the honor of being your Squeakquel for this meeting. With that, we will now proceed with our ceremonial procession with our young relatives, Connie and Jessica Adams, will drum us out as we remove our feathers from the mantle. HECHCA, OCM.